children. My son having some issues emotionally. Middle of a baseball game the other day, melts down, makes a scene in the dugout over just something silly. And this is common, happens all the time. And I've asked him, confronted him several times about the emotional meltdowns. I know there was a divorce a few years ago. Things are hard. I get it. I empathize with him. I've connected with him on that. But at the end of the day, you still get locked up in jail, regardless of your tough upbringing or your past, right? The world doesn't care about your excuses. You still have to make a choice at some point as to the quality of your life, right? It is a decision. It's a conscious choice. And so, we've just encountered this over and over and over again. And it's not just baseball. It's been at home too. There's just a certain threshold emotionally where he just loses it, melts down, and it's just game over. And very reminiscent of his mother. And probably all humans to a certain extent, right? I mean, we all have to develop emotional maturity and do what we know is right versus what we feel like doing, or indulging what we are feeling emotionally. But so this happens in the baseball game. I didn't know what to do. He said some things to my girlfriend who's in the dugout keeping score, said some things to the kids, and was kicking stuff, was just going berserk, and I didn't know what to do. We get in the truck, and I basically just laid down the law as far as I don't know exactly how to handle this, but it's not okay. Something's going to give. So what I've done is I've just pulled away every scene, and I'll tell you this, he's a great kid aside from this. Like, everything else about him is fantastic. He just has these points. Like, it's rare that I go through a practice or a game without him having an emotional meltdown. So there's a lot of video games, there's a lot of playtime, there's a lot of leniency on bedtime, there's a lot of, I have to look at my side of the street too. What am I doing wrong? And that's kind of where I came. I mean, it's obvious where he's having the issue. What's my side of the street, right? That's something we learn in the 12-step stuff too. My side of the road. How do I keep that clean? My accountability from me. So there's that, right? Like, a lot of leniency in these areas, and it's obviously not working. It's clear that something needs to change. So what I did is I said, look, I'm obligated legally to give you shelter and food, and that can be a floor and beans and rice. Right? That there's a roof, a floor, beans and rice. That's the bare minimum. Everything else outside of that, you earn. And that's based on your decisions and ultimately my level of trust with you. You can have freedom more than you could imagine. I have my 14-year-old daughter. She's earned my trust. I have a very loose leash on her, for lack of a better term. She's just a good kid, in and out. She makes great choices every single day. And until my trust is violated, I have no reason to doubt her intentions or her actions, or, as long as I just know where she's at. And, we have a good system going. My son, not so much. I can't let him outside of my sight without thinking there may be an emotional meltdown that's going to cause a major issue with other people or with himself. And so I conveyed this to him, my concerns and the lack of trust and how it was violated the other day. And, I acknowledged some of the areas that maybe I was participating in his meltdown. Like, there was a whole conversation we had while he was running the bases, and, found empathy there for him. Said, hey, I understand it was an intense moment and you didn't like the way I said it, but, I can't explain myself in detail in the middle of a baseball game when you're running bases. You need to just do what I say. And it's a silly thing, but that's what set him off. So I say, hey, I hear you. I understand maybe some feelings were hurt, but that's got to work through that a little bit. I can't always articulate the way I do when it's nice and calm. In the middle of a game, there's run type of dialogue coming out of my mouth, and escalated voice and things like that. So, heaven forbid the kid ever goes to boot camp or signs up for wrestling or something like that. I mean, it's just coaches and drill sergeants, things like that. Sometimes they will yell at you. So I just made sure that I'm keeping myself in check too, and make sure I wasn't being abusive or name calling or pushing it too far, which in this example, I certainly don't think that I was. So that was addressed. His behavior was addressed. The concerns that I had, the lack of trust, the way it's violated. And the solution I came up with is working incredibly well. I let him know that until I can trust him, I'm going to scale back on the leniency. So no friends, no video games, no TV. Every single thing he does until my trust is earned, until I see that his behavior dictates and warrants my leniencies, is going to be activities that help his self-esteem, make him feel better. So first thing is, he comes home from school, he does his homework, and he has to do it in a certain time frame. And then there's a list of exercises that he needs to do. And then there's a chores list at the house. And then he can read, or we can go out and work out. What we did yesterday, we went out and we practiced baseball, and he had the most phenomenal workout I have ever seen. His attitude was amazing. He was playing like a champ. It was the most incredible practice I've ever seen from him, because the only variable is that I took away all of the things that were not donating to his healthy self-esteem. So I told him, like, something's off between my behavior and yours. We're off somewhere. And just by scaling those things back, and now he's saying, well, Dad, can I have them back? Now can I go play with my friends? Now can I play video games? And what I'm doing is I said, look, and all of this is relative to how the real world is, right? This is the way the world reacts to emotional meltdowns. One emotional meltdown that hurts somebody can land you in prison for a long time, or can kill somebody in driving. One lapse of judgment in the real world can have consequences that are long lasting. And so I told him, this isn't going to happen overnight. I need to see consistency in this. You keep working the way you're doing. Show me in your next practice that you can be emotionally stable and deal with the ups and downs and the rigors of a baseball practice for once. I mean, it rarely happens where he doesn't cry and melt down in a practice. And so I said, look, show me next practice. Let's see how you do. Same thing in the next game. And that's, about 4 days away. Those two things can happen. He goes to his mom's tomorrow, and that's another thing. He goes to his mom's, and he comes back to my house. I hardly recognize the kid for a while. There's something that happens emotionally over there, and I don't know if it's incidental or what, but there's this consistent behavior adjustment time that has to happen when he goes to his mom's and comes back to me. But I'm trying to offer consistency where his behavior dictates the freedoms that he gets, just like we all deal with in the real world. And thus far, day one into this thing, it's just worked wonderfully. So we'll see how he does in the practice and in the game. And one slip up emotionally, I want it to be something it takes some time for him to build up. A week is like eternity for a kid. But that'd be the equivalent of me having an emotional meltdown, hitting somebody, cracking their skull on the ground, and I'm going to be in prison for a long time, right? Like, that seems like an eternity for me to go do. So these emotional meltdowns, and that's just for example, right? Those emotional meltdowns, it does have to stop. I need to look, anyway, you get it. That it's working. We'll see how it goes. I'm just super happy about it. All right. Thanks. Bye.